Welcome to the Quest Forums channel. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about the impeachment trial of Donald Trump. It's an issue that I really did not think I was going to be discussing. Maybe there's some people who would have been happy if I'd not done so, because I have been fairly critical of this president on a few different occasions. And as far as this specific instance is concerned, I really didn't think there was much here for me to discuss. Because it doesn't really seem to have a clear tie-in to the connection between religion and government. And so usually when I cover politics, I like to make sure that that is there. But what made it possible for me to make this video was the fact that Christianity Today responded to it. Mark Galli, the editor-in-chief there, he spoke for the entire organization and wrote an op-ed in which he said that Donald Trump should be removed from office because of his gross immorality, and that it tied into the same case that Christianity Today made back in the 90s when Bill Clinton was impeached. And again, I have my criticisms of Donald Trump. I didn't vote for him in 2016. I'm probably not going to vote for him this year unless something very specific changes. But even so, I am not going to the step of calling for his removal by the Senate. And I think that that's ridiculous. Immorality it's not something that's included in the Constitution where it talks about treason and bribery and other high crimes and misdemeanors. That's what Article 2, Section 4 calls for. And Donald Trump has done some pretty twisted things in his past, and his language on Twitter today is not fantastic, but it still is not covered there. And what happened with the Ukraine, it really is not as much of a slam dunk as people like Galli and as leftists like to make it out to be. It's very much in the normal course for a president to use aid in order to get an ally or a receiving nation to behave in a particular way. And what Donald Trump wanted to look at was corruption. And primarily, he wanted to look at it as it regarded Ukraine's interference in the 2016 election. So this whole idea of Joe Biden and Donald Trump targeting him as a political rival is not the biggest thing at play here. And even then, what Joe Biden did doesn't look great, with him getting a prosecutor fired that was looking into his son. So should someone, just because they're a political rival, should they not be held accountable? That doesn't really seem like a great idea to me. So I don't even have a problem, really, with what happened in the first place. And along with that, there have been other presidents who have done this sort of thing, that they've not been impeached for it, they've not been removed from office for it. And so it really is just political. And that's all it boils down to, is that hatred of Donald Trump. Now, I'm saying that, again, as someone who is not a supporter. In 2016, I didn't vote for him. Not so much because of the moral things. I did have a problem with his understanding, or what I really view as a lack of understanding of what Christianity is about. But even then, my biggest problem was that I was convinced he was a liar, and that he was telling conservatives what they wanted to hear, and then once he got in office, that he would really govern from the center left, and that he would work with Democrats even more frequently than he did with Republicans. I was wrong about that, and maybe it's partly because of the animosity between them, but he has accomplished a lot that he deserves credit for. And I freely admit that I was wrong about that. He, with the judicial nominees, and with his protection of life and of religious liberty, and of his reduction of the administrative states, and recently his handling of Iran, all of that's been pretty good, and it's a list that does just kind of go on and on with what he's accomplished. So he does deserve credit for those things. Now, when it comes to this year, I've spoken about this before, I had a very serious problem with his blasphemy, and what he did last August, and I do hold that against him. But that's for me to do, and I'm not saying that anybody else should have to. You have to make your own decisions. And again, that's not covered under the Constitution. Blasphemy is not something that you get kicked out of office for. Even if you have the problem with it that I do, that's not the same as saying that the Senate can actually remove him for. And that's what Galley calls for, which I think is an important distinction. Now, I am not a supporter of Donald Trump. I would kind of like to be. I'd love to see him repent of that blasphemy so that I would feel more comfortable being able to vote for him. But I'm not a supporter. That's not the same as being an opponent, which is what Galley is saying he is, that Christianity today is, and that all evangelical Christians should be. And he wants Donald Trump removed. That's not going to happen in the Senate. There's no way, and it really shouldn't be, over what the House of Representatives passed over to them. And it's not going to happen in the primary because Donald Trump has 90% approval in the Republican Party, so he's not going anywhere as far as the ticket is concerned. So the only way you can realistically and lawfully remove him from office is to have a Democrat beat him in November. And so what Galley's saying right now is that whoever comes out of the Democrat field should be voted for. And that's insane. I'm sorry, but I won't tell anyone not to vote for Donald Trump. I will tell Christians that they should not vote for whoever comes out of that mess of a field, because whoever that person is going to be anti-life and is going to be anti-conscience. They're not going to be interested in protecting our religious liberties. And so they do not deserve our support, no matter how much you want to get Donald Trump out of office. Yeah, that is very much an anti-Christian position to take for Christianity today. It's pretty mad as far as I'm concerned. And so the thing is, this is maybe to bridge that gap a little bit, where Galley and I are on the same page, possibly, is when it comes to other evangelical Christians, those of you who pretty certainly are going to be voting for Donald Trump. And again, I don't hold it against you, which he apparently does. But what I really want from you and from evangelical Christians is to hold the president accountable. It's not even so much his fault that he said what he did last August, to a certain extent. He basically doesn't know any better. And so it was up to us to complain and to tell him that he was wrong. And so the inability of people on the right side of the aisle to criticize Donald Trump, that's kind of the real problem here. And so I would love to see that change. And I would love to see Christians stand up to him and let him know when he's done something wrong. But again, that's not the same as just kicking him out. It would be possible to actually improve him by doing that. And that's what I would like to see, is not his destruction, but his reformation. And it is possible. He needs you. And so if you ask him for those things, then he probably will do them, and hopefully would understand. And so that's what I want to encourage, to do the best that I can, and just to make that hopefully be a growing movement among Christians, is that we recognize that, we're kind of responsible for him, so we should try to make him the best that he can be. So I know there's going to be a lot of people who disagree with me on this. If you want to tell me why I'm wrong, or if you want to ask some questions about it, you can feel free to leave those down in the comments. Also, in the description, there's a link to the article where I go over this as well. Thanks very much for checking out this video, and until next time, keep looking up.